Hello and welcome. My name is Natty Cash and welcome again to another video of the Ultimate March Madness Tournament. This is now part 16. We're getting close to the end here now. If you haven't seen the rest of this series, go and look in the description. Go to the part 1 video. Explains everything that we've been doing so far and gets you right into the action. So please go and do that. If not, if you've been following along, let's take a look at where we were and what we're doing today. As you can see, we only have 2 more regions to finish before we can summon the Sweet 16 teams all together and figure out our ultimate winner. Last video, we had Creighton, our number 1 seed out of the Great Plains region, come out of that region and be another number 1 seed in the Sweet 16. Let's see what we can get from the Texas region coming out of Dallas. And so here we are looking at the Texas region, starting with our number 1 seed. In the Texas region will be the Golden Eagles from Marquette, a 27-10 record out of the Big East. That was good enough for 3rd in that league. They only had lost out to UConn in the final in their conference tournament, so a strong number 1 seed in Marquette sitting there, seeing if we can get another number 1 seed out of a region. Well, that'll be up to them. Then we have the number 16 seeds, which will be a play-in game between the Omaha Mavericks from the Summit League, 15-18 record, good enough for 6th in that league, up against the San Jose State Spartans, a 9-23 record, good enough for 10th in a strong Mountain West region. Then we have our number 9 seed, which will be the UMass Lowell Riverhawks, a 22-10 team coming out of the America East Conference. They did well in their conference tournament, only losing out to number 1 Vermont from their region. So we'll see what they can do sitting in number 9. They will have to go up against the Southern Illinois Salukis. A 19-13 record from the Missouri Valley Conference, good enough for 6th in that region. So then we look at our number 5. Our number 5 is going to be the South Florida Bulls, a 25-8 record out of the American region. Good enough for the top spot in that region. However, they had lost out to UAB in the conference tournament. Then they'll have to wait for a number 12 seed play-in game, which will be either the Manhattan Jaspers out of the Metro Atlantic Conference, 7-23 record, good enough for 10th for them in that region, up against the Texas A&M Corpus Christi Islanders, a 21-12 record out of the Southland region. That was good enough for 2nd in their conference. They had lost out early in overtime in their first matchup. Then we take a look at our number 13 seed, which is another play-in game. We'll have between the Robert Morris Colonels and the Montana State Bobcats. The Colonels out of the Horizon League at a 10-22 record, good enough for 9th in the Horizon League. And you had Montana State, a 17-18 record out of the Big Sky, good enough for 5th in that region. But not only that, then they were able to win against 3 opponents and make their way to become conference champions of the Big Sky region. So a tough battle there. Montana State, a conference champions of the Big Sky. Then you take a look at the number 4 seed, and it will be the Gamecocks from South Carolina, a 26-8 record from the SEC, good enough for 5th in a strong SEC. Lost out to Auburn in the conference tournament, but they're sitting in a strong number 4 seed position. See what they can do in this seed. Then we take a look at the other side, and our number 2 seed in this region will be the Aztecs from San Diego State with a 26-11 record. That was good enough for 5th in the Mountain West Conference. However, they did beat the number 1 Utah State in their conference tournament. So see what they can do sitting in a strong number 2 seed going into this type of tournament. They are awaiting a 15 seed, which will be either the Jacksonville Dolphins or the Red Hawks from Miami, Ohio. The Dolphins, a 16-17 record out of the Atlantic Sun, good enough for 10th in their region. However, they had a run of their own, beating the number 1 seed Eastern Kentucky in their conference tournament. And the Red Hawks from Miami, Ohio, a 15-17 record out of the MAC conference, 7th in that league, lost out to Akron in their conference tournament. Going further down, they have the number 7 seed, which is going to be the Pride from Hofstra, a 20-13 record, 3rd in the the Coastal Athletic Association. We'll see what they can do sitting in that 7 seed. They'll be up against a 10 seed, which is the Missouri State Bears, a 17-18 record out of the Missouri Valley Conference, good enough for 9th in that league. We'll see what they can do sitting in a 10th seed. The number 6 seed will be the Yale Bulldogs, a 23-10 record from the Ivy League. That was good enough for 2nd in their league, but they went on to become conference champions in the Ivy League. So Ivy League conference champions sitting in that 6th seed position. They are awaiting a number 11 seed, which will be a play-in game between the Morgan State Bears and the Utah Valley Wolverines. An 11-20 record for the Bears coming out of the MEAC conference. 5th in that league, losing out to Howard in their opening game in the conference tournament. They have the Utah Valley Wolverines that they'll face, which have a 16-16 record, good enough for 5th in the WAC conference. Then you have the 14th seed, which is another play-in game, which is up against the Lemoyne Dolphins. 15-17 record out of the Northeast Conference, good enough for 4th in that region, up against the Rhode Island Rams. A 12-20 team out of the Atlantic 10. Not so great sitting in 11th in that league, but we'll see what they can do in this play-in game and if they can make a run. Whoever wins that game will have to play the number 3 seed, which is the Oklahoma Sooners, a 20-12 record team out of the Big 12. Good enough for 9th in a very competitive Big 12, but they are sitting here and as a number 3 seed, a strong position for them. So once again, we look at the entire bracket of the Texas region. Make any predictions if you want into the comments, and we are then going to go one game at a time and determine who is the Texas regional champion. Starting off with the Omaha Mavericks and the San Jose State Spartans. And it is the Spartans of San Jose State that get the victory here. They take a lead early on and kind of maintain roughly a 10-point lead throughout and get their first victory in this tournament. And so San Jose State does move forward. They will have to play the number 1 seed Marquette in their next matchup. Our next play-in game is the Manhattan Jaspers up against the Islanders from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And it is the Islanders that get the victory here. A slow and steady lead that they built on, but by the time it was halftime, they're up by about 16 points, and they built on to a very dominant win in the end. And so the Islanders moving forward, representing and being our 12th seed, will have to play South Florida in their next matchup. Our 13 seed play-in game will be the Robert Morris Colonels up against the Montana State Bobcats. And this is a close one, but it is the Colonels that get the victory here. Looks like the Colonels had a lead for most of it, but again, this lead is only by maybe 8, maybe at most 10 points throughout it. So a close game, but it really was Robert Morris that had the lead throughout and was able to then secure that 5-point win to move on to the next round. And so Robert Morris is the team moving into that 13 seed. They will have to play the South Carolina Gamecocks in their next matchup. And looking at the bottom of our bracket, we will have another play-in game, which is the Jacksonville Dolphins up against the Red Hawks from Miami, Ohio. And here we do see the Red Hawks taking the victory here. They led early, even though it was close, only a few points. but by about halftime, they had started to build about a 12-point lead and never really looked back, on their way to a comfortable first win in this tournament. And so our Red Hawks from Miami, Ohio move into that 15th seed position. They will have to face the Aztecs from San Diego State in their next round. Further down, we see the number 11 seed playing game, which is between the Morgan State Bears and the Utah Valley Wolverines. And in a close one, it is the Wolverines that get the win here. They were leading the entire time, but as you can see in the first half, there was a very narrow lead and really only maybe leading by 7 at halftime. They did get a bigger lead in the second half, but then struggled offensively, and the lead went down to only 4, but they were able to then finish off and get the 6-point victory in the end. And so we will see Utah Valley moving in, representing the 11th seed. They will have to play Yale in their next matchup. Our last play-in game is going to be Lemoyne Dolphins up against the Rams from Rhode Island. Unfortunately, with the website that I'm using, Lemoyne does not have the data to run any simulations. They are new to Division 1. So that's unfortunate. So that will mean that Rhode Island move forward. Hopefully, if I do this in next year or in years in the future, that Lemoyne will be represented properly. So Rhode Island does move forward, and now we have our finished 16 teams sitting here ready to go. We will start at the top again, where we have the Golden Eagles of Marquette up against the San Jose State Spartans. And this was a close one, but it is Marquette that get the victory here. They are leading nearly the entire time. Again, had a 11-point lead at halftime with the biggest lead at 19, but they started to struggle offensively, and San Jose brought it to within 2, but could not get over the hump, and it is the Golden Eagles from Marquette that get their win. So Marquette moves forward into the regional quarterfinal. They will play the winner of the UMass Lowell Riverhawks or the Seleucus from Southern Illinois. And we do have Southern Illinois getting the 10-point victory here. Looks like UMass Lowell were leading for a good chunk of the first half, but by about halftime they are down by maybe about 5 or so. It was the Seleucus that continued to push forward and never let the Riverhawks catch up to them on their way to a 10-point victory. So it is Southern Illinois that move forward into the regional quarterfinal. Our next matchup will be the South Florida Bulls up against the Corpus Christi Islanders. And here we see South Florida getting the victory here. It was actually Corpus Christi that held the lead for most of the first half. And at about halftime, there was not a big lead, maybe about by 5 from South Florida. But it was the second half that did enough long stretches without any points for the Islanders, allowed the Bulls to make a big lead and get the 19-point victory. So it is South Florida that move forward into the next round. They'll await their opponent, which will either be the Colonels from Robert Morris or the Gamecocks from South Carolina. And we have the Gamecocks coming up with the victory here. An early lead taken and never really allowing Robert Morris to get back into it. Even they got to within about 2 or 3, but never could come over the hump there, and they get a 14-point victory to move on to the next round. And it is South Carolina that move into our regional quarterfinal. Moving down the bracket, we see the San Diego Aztecs needing to face off against the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. And this was a very close one, but it is the Aztecs that get the win here. Back and forth game, many lead changes. It was Miami of Ohio that was up by about 5 at halftime, but back and forth lead changes. San Diego State starting to lead in the second half. Another lead taken by Miami of Ohio. Then some good defensive stops and a few key buckets for San Diego State allow them to get the 4-point victory here. What a close one. So it is San Diego State that move forward. They'll await their next opponent, which will either be the Hofstra Pride or the Bears from Missouri State. And it is the Bears from Missouri State that get the victory here. You see a very close battle for most of the first half. Hofstra being up by about 5 at halftime. But then an offensive juggernaut of Missouri State starts to really push hard offensively and actually gets a relatively comfortable win to finish off the Pride and move on to the next round. And so it is the Bears of Missouri State, the number 10 seed, that do move into the next round. A bit of an upset there. We'll see what they can do further on in this tournament. Next up, we have the Yale Bulldogs up against the Utah Valley Wolverines. And this one is another close one, but it is Yale that get the victory here. Utah Valley get an early lead, and then Yale takes over, and by halftime, it's only really a 5-point lead, and it stays right around that range up until the very last little bit. Utah Valley get to within 3, but can't really get any closer as Yale pull out a 4-point victory in this one. And so we have Yale moving on to the regional quarterfinals. They'll await their opponent, which will either be the Rhode Island Rams or the Oklahoma Sooners. And it is the Sooners that take care of business here with a 20-point victory. After a couple lead changes, Oklahoma take a lead, and really by halftime they're up by 13 points and just continue to build on that on their way to their first victory in the tournament. And that was our last team to make it into the regional quarterfinals. The Sooners are there. Now we'll determine our semifinalists. First off, it'll be a winner between the Golden Eagles of Marquette and the Salukis from Southern Illinois. In this one, it is Marquette that take care of business here. They are lead the entire time. They had a lead of about 11 at halftime, although Southern Illinois did get to about within 4 or within 3 at one point. But one last surge from the Golden Eagles, and Marquette moves on to the regional semifinals. So we do have Marquette moving into our regional semifinals. Our next semifinalist is going to be between the Bulls of South Florida and the South Carolina Gamecocks. And it is the Bulls from South Florida that get the victory here. An early lead taken by South Carolina, and then beyond that, South Florida, it was all them. At halftime, they are up by 12 and kind of built up to an 18-point lead. Now, South Carolina did well to try to pull it back, but it was too little too late, and South Florida ended up getting a 6-point victory to move to the semifinals. And so we see the number 5 seed, South Florida, moving into a semifinal position. Next, we have the San Diego State Aztecs up against the Missouri State Bears. Another winner will go to the semifinals. And this was a close one, but it is the Aztecs again with a win here. Missouri State actually had taken a lead in the first half. We're up by about 10. Then no offense from them allowed San Diego State to get back into the game, and by halftime they are leading by about 3. A couple other lead changes, but San Diego State did lead for most of the second half, but still only won by a 3-point margin. But in this case, a win is a win, and they move forward. So with San Diego State moving forward, they are awaiting their semifinal opponent, which will be either the Yale Bulldogs or the Oklahoma Sooners. And it is the Sooners that take care of business here. They take the lead early and never really look back. We're leading by nearly 20 points at halftime and continued that onward and getting a comfortable victory to move to the semifinals. And so we have the Oklahoma Sooners wrapping up our semifinalists. Now it's time to determine who is going to be our regional finalists. In our first matchup, we have the Marquette Golden Eagles up against the Bulls from South Florida. And in this one, Marquette take care of business and get a very comfortable victory in the end. However, the first half was fairly close, back and forth lead changes or ties. But it is Marquette that start to get momentum towards the end of the first half, getting a 9-point lead, and then they built on that to get a comfortable victory, moving to our regional finals. So another number 1 seed in Marquette gets to the regional finals. Let's see what they can do, but we have to determine their opponent, which is either the San Diego State Aztecs or the Oklahoma Sooners. And this was a back and forth game, but it is the Aztecs to get a 1-point victory out of this one. Oklahoma had a lead in the first half early, but it was very back and forth, maybe a 1-point difference at halftime. And even though Oklahoma started to try to grow their lead, San Diego State didn't go anywhere and eventually took the lead at the last second to be able to get a 1-point victory, moving on to this region's finals. So with San Diego State moving forward, we have another matchup between the 1 and 2 seeds. This is the 7th time that this has happened out of all the regional tournaments. However, you may not expect this, but it's the number 2 seed that's been more on top in this. 4 wins for the number 2 seed compared to only 2 for the number 1 seed. But let's see what happens here. We got to see who is our Texas region champion. Is it going to be the Marquette Golden Eagles or the San Diego State Aztecs? And it is the Aztecs that are the Texas region champions here. It's really tough. San Diego State were winning nearly the entire time, and only really then towards the second half, Marquette had enough offense to tie them. But then down the stretch, Marquette had very little offense to speak of, and San Diego did just enough to get the 6-point victory, becoming the Texas region champion. So congratulations to San Diego State. They are the Texas region champions, another number 2 seed here. We now have a total of 7 number 2 seeds that had moved on and are in this position. That is kind of crazy. Nearly half of the entire field are number 2 seeds. Thank you so much for watching. As you can see, we only have 1 region left. So we have the Rust Belt region that will be in our next video, and then a final video will be to play out of the final 16 teams, our Sweet 16, who will become ultimate champions. We are nearing the end, everyone. Thank you again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back again soon, and we'll finish this out shortly. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.